In this movie, I will discuss creating tooltips. Tooltips by default are not a property that is associated with every control in the form. That is, if I click in the first name text box and scroll through the properties list, you'll notice where you typically would expect to find the property called tooltip, that is in the area in the T's, it is not there. Okay? There is no tooltip by default in the properties window. However, there is a way to add this tooltip control to the properties list, and that is by going to the tooltip box or the toolbox and simply double clicking the tooltip control. In the toolbox, under the common controls grouping, you will find the tooltip control. By double clicking that tooltip control, you then place the tooltip control in a special area called the components tray. The components tray is an area that makes itself available to all the controls on the form. This is where controls are available to the entire form are placed, and as your projects become more complex, we'll be using this components tray area more and more often. But for now, we'll simply use the tooltip in our application. When I return to the form and click on the first name text box, now if I scroll through the properties list, you'll see that there is indeed a property called tooltip. Now the difference here is we simply have added the tooltip to the components tray. And now every control on the form has a tooltip property associated with it. To create the text for the tooltip, I simply enter a phrase such as enter your first name, or whatever you would like the user to see when the tooltip is activated. I can do likewise for the last name. I'll click on the last name text box, return to the properties window, and enter the appropriate text. Enter your last name. And of course I could do this for all the controls on the form. And I'm associating these with the text box themselves, and quite simply that's all there is to it. Let's run the application. Now at runtime, when I move the mouse over the first name text box, you will see a phrase that says enter your first name in a bubble. And likewise for the last name, you'll see the tooltip enter your last name. You can associate a tooltip with any control that's currently on the form. I'll stop the program and return to the form at design time. I'll create a tooltip for the Create Label button. So the first thing I want to do is to activate the Create Label button and return to the Properties window, and you'll notice there is indeed a tooltip property. Once again, recognize that I only need to add the tooltip once to the components tray, and now it's available to all the controls that are currently on the form. So in the same manner as I did for the text boxes, I can now enter a message such as press this button to create the label, or whatever it is that you would like for the user to see. Of course, in this case the project is fairly simple and the button itself may be self-explanatory. But you'll find this technique of using tooltips will be very useful to direct your user and to give them some helpful hints in using the application effectively. So let's test our program out one more time, and you'll see as I hover the mouse over the Create Label button, I indeed see the tooltip press this button to create the label. One last note about the tooltip property. Just like the tooltip component is added to the components tray, it can also be deleted. So if I were to select it, right click it, that is the tooltip in the components tray, could right click and then choose delete. Making sure I'm not at runtime, right click delete. As you can see, the tooltip has been deleted from the components tray, and the resulting text have also been deleted from the controls that belong to the form. So the tooltip has to be in the components tray in order for the tooltip to actually work in your project.